in the very same jackleberry. Little bit of a drum roll. Hello, Mrs. Wig. Isn't she beautiful? Now, I don't think you would even believe me when I tell you this, but we're probably 2 meters, 2.5 meters at most away from Mrs. Wig. She's sitting very calmly on this branch, overhanging on the Malawati, in that same area where they've been nesting before. Now, Mr. Wig was here as well. He's moved himself further up the drainage line. I can still vaguely see him, but not as clearly. And I have a feeling that this is Mrs. Wig and the other one was Mr. Wig because of the size difference. It's one of the few species of owl, well, eagle owl to be fair, that the male is bigger than the female. And this one definitely is smaller than the other one. So Mr. and Mrs. Wig, if you don't know the story, it is quite a beautiful story. They are frequent visitors here to the Malawati drainage line, close to Mamba Road. I'm repositioning slightly, sorry. And they come back every year to nest. I don't know what age. There'll be a nest in this area sometime soon. Now, it's not you get close enough to feel it. Especially a spotted eagle owl. They're big, but they fly easily. So we have repositioned and left the male. And we have found the female. But the challenge to you is, where is she at the moment? We know where she is. Can you see where she is? G's going to do a bit of a slow motion movement for you. See if you can spot her anywhere. If you guessed right in the middle, you would have been absolutely right. There she is. Now this is why a spotted eagle owl has such good camouflage. It blends in perfectly with this bush willow tree that's been pushed over. Oh, I think it might actually be a jackleberry. Yeah, it's a jackleberry. Look at those leaves. Wow. Look at her camouflage. Isn't she amazing? Now, I've definitely got my words a little bit straighter now. And I know that she is a spotted eagle owl, looking absolutely gorgeous with ear tufts. Not a pearl-spotted owlet with wing tufts.
Well done.
Thank you, G. Oh, goodness. We get so excited every time we see Mr. and Mrs. Wig. And it certainly seems like they are getting very comfortable in this drainage line. So we can kind of see the old nesting site from here, but we are definitely thinking they might be moving a little bit more towards the thicker section of the drainage line. So where they were was fairly open. Where they've been hanging out now is nice and dense, and this is amazing because not only do they blend in better, much better camouflage with the surroundings, but the eggs and the nest will be much better hidden if they do a nest or build a nest site here, do a nest site here. But I mean, look at that again, zooming out, giving you a bit of a wider view. If she wasn't moving and you drove past now, there is absolutely no way that you would spot her unless you knew she was there. She looks like part of the tree stump. It's a really cool challenge to see if you can spot her. Now you can see she's got a really flexible rotation of her neck. So she's turned it all the way back to look over her shoulder. Now it's a very common misconception that owls can turn their heads 360 degrees. If they did that, their heads would probably pop off. It's not possible to turn 360 degrees because then your neck would be in a full rotation and you'd probably cut off circulation at some point to your spinal cord, and alas, you would not survive. But she can turn her head to about 270 degrees, so 3/4 of that circle. A really good way to describe that is if you're looking at a compass and it's north at the top, east on the right, south on the bottom, and west on the left. If her head was north, pointing forwards, she could turn it past west, past south, and all the way back to east. She can't go east to north. She could also go north to east to south to west, but not west to north. So she'd have to go round and back again and then round the other way. Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to cross out of the you can hear south if you guys get anything on the east shore.
Yeah, copy that, will do. Will you do the same for us?
Of course.
Well, of course. Thank you. Wowee.
Jody, I've got a black stuff that way.
Laura Cam, it's brilliant, isn't it? This camouflage is some of the best that you will see across any of the bird species. The owls have the best camouflage to me. This looks just like those jackalberry tree stumps. If you look at something like a scops owl, looks just like the bark of trees as well, and it sits right in the grooves or right in the corners and crevices of the trees, so it literally blends in with the bark. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, if we compared her to an eagle, she's a bit smaller, so not as big as the Verreaux's eagle owl, which is previously known as the giant eagle owl. But in comparison to an eagle, she would have better eyesight because they hunt primarily at night, so they have to have better eyesight. Oh, I love the way her little wings are blowing in the wind. It looks like she's about to take off. And her neck rotates 90 degrees further than, say, something like a Bateleur, which would probably go around to 180. So from north to south and back again, one way or the other way, but not all the way around. So a little bit more specialized. They've also got very tightly packed feather structures. They're very aerodynamic. So when an owl flies, you can't hear it. Where if an eagle was to fly over, we would hear it. And that's, again, to hunt very effectively at night. Swoop down in silence. The shadow of death from above, I suppose. But I suppose patience is key. And patience definitely paid off in this case. Not that I was being patient not to find Mr. and Mrs. Wig, but I haven't seen them in about 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. Because they haven't been back at the nesting site. But now that it's breeding season, they're home. They're back. So beautiful. Now, I don't know if this is Mr. Wig or Mrs. Wig. It's one of the two. But it's very tough to tell because they look pretty much exactly the same, except that the male is slightly larger than the female, which is different to a lot of other birds. In most birds, the female is larger than the male. But in spotted eagle owls, it is definitely the male that is bigger. I have a feeling this might be Mr. Wig. He looks quite puffy and proud and big. But I could be wrong. We can't see the other one. But how amazing is it to know that our little owl family might be expanding soon and that they're finally back in their home space. Now, I'm not sure whether they're once again, wow, language. I don't know if they're going to use the same nest or not. Amanda, I'm sure certain owl species might migrate, but they shouldn't really need to. Most of the migratory bird species are the ones that eat things like insects. So the owls that we get here are definitely resident. But there might be an owl species in the world that migrates. I'm actually not sure. But these ones definitely don't. Verreaux's eagle owls don't. Pearl-spotted owlets, scops owls, none of them do because they eat mammals, rodents, insects. They eat a variety of things. And so we don't have anything that really changes that much summer to winter that the owl and predatory species here would not be able to find food. But what they do is they will move away from a nesting site and come back to the same nesting site year after year. So Mr. and Mrs. Wig have been around Djuma the whole time. I'm sure they've been somewhere here. But they would have potentially just not been close to the Mulawati drainage line, or we just didn't notice them. But at the specific nesting site, they only really come back during the breeding season. Can you imagine? It would cause a bit of a problem if Mr. and Mrs. Wig were to come back to the same spot every single night. Predators would find them quite easily, so they want to keep that nesting site well hidden. They don't really want to be that obvious that they can be tracked down to the same spot for every day of the year. But isn't it beautiful? Currently sleeping. If it had its eyes open, you would definitely notice them, these striking yellow-orange eyes. And this is the largest of the ear-tufted species of owl in the area. So the other owls that are larger do not have those ear tufts like a Verreaux's eagle owl. They've got a bit of a shape, like a cat-headed shape, but they don't have those ear tufts. I think the ear tufts are quite dramatic looking. I really like them. So I think it's probably likely that Mrs. Wig, I think, is out hunting, if this is Mr. Wig and not Mrs. Wig. The other one is definitely out hunting somewhere and probably had a nap just a little bit down the riverbed or somewhere on the bank, looking for rodents, looking for lizards, all the yummy things one must look for when you're producing eggs and growing things inside of you. So definitely worth it. I'm hoping I get to see her sometime soon. It would be very nice to see the pair together. We were quite lucky last year, obviously, having them nest here. When I got here, they were already nesting. So that's this month. A year ago was my first stint at Juma. And Mr. and Mrs. Wig were already nesting. They had eggs, and then by the time I came back in December, January, February, they definitely didn't just have eggs anymore. It was very special to be able to watch. But he, she, this one is definitely having a nap. So I think we are not going to disturb any longer. I'm sure it's going, please, will you stop talking?